Jean Baudrillard was a French sociologist, philosopher, cultural theorist, political commentator, and photographer. His work is frequently associated with postmodernism and specifically post-structuralism. Baudrillard was a social theorist and critic, best known for his analysis of the modes of mediation and technological communication. Mostly concerned with the way technological progress affects social change, he wrote about diverse subjects, including consumerism, gender relations, social history, journalistic commentaries about AIDS, cloning, the Rushdie affair, the first Gulf War, and the World Trade Center attacks in New York City. His published work emerged as part of a generation of French thinkers including Gilles Deleuze, Jean-François Lyotard, Michel Foucault, Jacques Derrida, and Jacques Lacan, who all shared an interest in semiotics, and he is often seen as part of the post-structuralist philosophical school. In common with many post-structuralists, his arguments consistently draw upon the notion that signification and meaning are both understandable in terms of how particular words or signs interrelate. Baudrillard thought, as do many post-structuralists, that meaning is brought through systems of signs working together. Following on from the structuralist linguist Ferdinand de Saussure, Baudrillard argued that meaning, value, is created through difference, through what something is not. So dog means dog because it is not cat, not goat, not tree, etc. In fact, he viewed meaning as near enough self-referential. Objects, images of objects, words, and signs are situated in a web of meaning. One's object's meaning is only understandable through its relation to the meaning of other objects. In other words, one thing's prestige relates to another's mundanity. From this starting point, Baudrillard theorized broadly about human society based upon this kind of self-referentiality. His pictures of society portray societies always searching for a sense of meaning, or a total understanding of the world. That remains consistently elusive. In contrast to post-structuralists such as Michel Foucault, for whom the formations of knowledge emerge only as the results of relation of power, Baudrillard developed theories in which the excessive, fruitless search for total knowledge leads almost inevitably to a kind of delusion. In Baudrillard's view, the human subject may try to understand the non-human object, but because the object can only be understood according to what it signifies, and because the process of signification immediately involves a web of other signs from which it is distinguished, this never produces the desired results. The subject rather becomes seduced. In the original Latin says seducere, to lead away, by the object. He therefore argues that, in the last analysis, a complete understanding of the minutiae of life is impossible, and when people are seduced into thinking otherwise, they become drawn towards a simulated version of reality, or to use one of his neologisms, a state of hyperreality. This is not to say that the world becomes unreal, but rather the faster and more comprehensively societies begin to bring reality together into one supposedly coherent picture, the more insecure and unstable it looks, and the more fearful societies become. Reality, in this sense, dies out. Accordingly, Baudrillard argued that the excess of signs and meaning of the late 20th century global society had caused, quite paradoxically, an effacement of reality. In this world, neither liberal nor Marxist utopias are any longer believed in. We live, he argued, not in a global village, to use Marshall McLuhan's phrase, but rather in a world that is ever more easily petrified by even the smallest event, because the global world operates at the level of the exchange of signs and commodities. It becomes ever more blind to symbolic acts such as, for example, terrorism. In Baudrillard's work, The Symbolic Realm, which he develops perspective on through the anthropological work of Marcel Mauss and Georges Bataille, is seen as quite distinct from that of signs and signification. Signs can be exchanged like commodities. Symbols, on the other hand, operate quite differently. They are exchanged like gifts, sometimes violently as a form of potlatch. Baudrillard, particularly in his later work, saw the global society as without the symbolic element, and therefore symbolically, if not militarily, defenseless against acts such as Rushdie Factoire, or indeed the September 11 terrorist attacks against the United States and its military and economic establishment.